Okay, hello everyone. Good to be here with you. I'm just making some small adjustments, and could you let me know if you're hearing me okay with this microphone? Okay, hopefully all's well. Still testing out this new microphone and different positions. All my lights seem to be indicating everything's okay. Lovely. Takes a while for some messages to come through. Very good. Thank you. Okay, well, here we are together again. It seems like, doesn't seem like long ago that I was speaking with you, but it was actually 6 weeks ago. You had Samaneri Jayasara in between. So we're here to have a guided meditation together, to enjoy connecting in the Dharma, learning how to settle into meditation initially, and then being able to ask some questions, focused on the Dhamma, focused on what you're practicing with, how you receive the meditation, the questions that come up regarding meditation and all of that. So as we head into this meditation, I know people are just joining live and want to say hello, but I really encourage you to rest out of using the chat box during the meditation especially, and then once that's done, after about 25-30 minutes, we'll have an opportunity to engage with Q&A. So this morning it's been a little bit of a time pressure for me to get here on time, not because I was up late, but just a few things got in the way, and then just sorting out this new recording and microphone. So as I guide us in this meditation, I was going to speak from my own experience here, which is very ordinary. Don't imagine that we're on a different planet, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We have, work with the same kind of minds that you guys work with. So here I've been rushing so I can feel my heart still, the heartbeat still up a bit, the mind moving, but really looking forward to just settling. So however you find yourself right now, entering into the meditation, whether with eyes open or closed, we can use this experience of the body, no matter how it feels, just to bring our attention to physical sensation, bodily sensation, awareness initially of the whole body, the heart beating, the blood moving through the veins, the various sensations of pressure with the sitting posture, the movement of the breath. And part and parcel of bodily experience, of course, is hearing sounds, seeing forms, visual forms, and also the experience of thoughts, mental movement. We can actually feel the physical basis of that, neurological movement, eye movement, brain activity. So just noticing how that is in the present, without favoring or opposing any experience. Just let it be as it is, but be aware, particularly of the physical sensate experience of being here in bodily form. And to help our mind, our mental activity settle, perhaps give your primary attention or foreground attention more to the movement of the breath, even as you're aware of all those other sensations. Let those recede more into the background and be interested in the breath, the movement of the breath. Not as a thought or an idea, but noticing the sensations as breath moves in and out of the body. And let the breath do what it does. Sometimes there's short, shallow breathing. And sometimes, particularly as the body starts to relax, there'll be a longer, deeper breath. Don't force one or the other. Just notice the body in its natural breathing, sensate movements. The furious movement of thought driven by seeking, searching. And just keep reminding attention that it can simply rest with this present moment, movement of breath. It's okay just to be with this. We're not looking to create any kind of experience, to make it more peaceful or more pleasant, or to push anything out of consciousness. We actually want to see that attempt to do things and allow ourselves to rest out of that. Resting out of the doing into just being. If you can allow yourself to enjoy this time of just being, held in this shared space with the guidance, letting the mind be open and relaxed. Sometimes it's just a gradual nudging or remembering to let go of the habitual mental seeking and mental doing. It's just habitual movement, seeing it, relaxing out of it, and gradually the mind lets go of following that and relaxes into this present moment awareness and just being with things as they are, kind of slipping under the mental stream. And it's natural to lose mindfulness of the body when you're not thoroughly familiar with resting out of mental movement. So it's simply a matter of remembering, waking up. We usually wake up to the fact that we've kind of been sucked down a wormhole of thought and memory and mental projection. You just recognize that. There's nothing unusual or wrong. It's just what happens. But every time you wake up and rest out of that into present moment bodily, or present moment awareness of bodily sensations, it gives power to that resting and momentum to the relaxation of letting go. Learning what that movement is about, the relaxing out of habitual restriction and chasing, running with thought. Which is really an entrapment. But as soon as we wake up to that, it's possible to immediately rest out of it in the waking up. And giving attention to bodily sensations, actually as you feel them in the present. Helps to stabilize awareness in the present. So even as we rest in present moment awareness with sensations, the mind is open. There's still sounds that can be heard, the sensations of physical or mental moments of, say, contact with the body or contact with the mind, sense contact. But the more we can rest in the present, that sense contact is seen and felt as very brief, very momentary. So we just see that, know that as it is. It is known as it is. And the breath sensations, they're not one thing, they're a flow of different sensations. So we're not trying to narrow down our experience and get stuck on one thing. We're just being with the simplicity of the flow of sense contact. That having rested out of being caught in thought formations, narrative, memory, just with what is, as it appears and disappears. We can also recognize the relative stillness of the body as a support for stabilizing in meditation. Awareness of the bodily posture in sitting, or if you're laying down, awareness of that posture. And awareness too that the posture is indicated in the mind by various sensations. Which also has a certain flux. They appear and disappear in consciousness, in awareness. We can remind ourselves from time to time, it's okay to just be. Because the momentum of the searching mind, the seeking mind, the mental movement that wants to latch on to something or find something, subtly can start to take over. So the little occasional mantra of just be can help us relax out of that again. Be as you are. What is it just to be? What is this experience of being? We can ask the question, but don't look for an answer. The question is an inquiry that turns the mind's attention to the experience of being. And helps it remain there as an open, interested awareness, shedding any layers of preconception, expectation, identity, false layers of identity, self-image, This is what we call learning to rest in the natural state. Letting the layers of mental projection, identification, just keep falling apart and shedding. Resting into the natural state of being, presence, nature of mind, awareness. Whatever movement appears, it's always very fleeting, temporary. This journey in meditation will be your main teacher. We learn directly from experience as we explore the nature of mind. But the Buddha gives us very explicit and important pointers to assist and to help elicit insight. And that is to clearly notice the impermanent and changing nature of all that appears in the mind, all that arises ceases, all that appears disappears. And that is all the experience of the senses of seeing, hearing, sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, and at the mind door, mentality, thoughts, ideas, memories. All of these things can be seen to come and go, whether they're pleasant or painful or neutral in feeling tone. Simply noticing the nature of experiences to arise and cease like this. That's what we call the conditioned world, conditioned reality. The sound of the bird, as beautiful as it is. So seeing impermanence or fleetingness is not a value judgment. It's simply seeing the nature of conditioned arisings, the conditioned world. And we can also come to see the field, the unchanging field of awareness, within which all such perceivables and conceivables appear and disappear. I call it awareness. That's just a word. The Buddha refers to it as the unconditioned, the Dharma Dhatu, or the deathless element. Nothing could be known within the conditioned world without that. But don't try to conceive it or perceive it. As Ajahn Mun said, you know the nature of this by the movement of the dance. In other words, by seeing the movement of what comes and goes, we can directly penetrate to that which is beyond coming and going. It's plainly there. And the masters say, you are that. Not as a personality or individual being, but the very nature of mind, for want of a better phrase. empty awareness, non-conceptual awareness. Ever present. Not the blips of cognition that come and go with sense contact, but that which knows the coming and going directly. But any attempt to grasp or fix on it is off in the wrong direction. Rather, the resting as that is the pointer. Trusting is the attitude, not grasping. So let's bring this meditation to a close now. And in your own time, come back into this relational space, sharing the internet connection. And if you'd like to ask any questions, just pop them into the chat box and we'll see how we go. Okay. Okay, so there's a couple of questions that were at the top already. So, first is, hello, I am addicted to fast dopamine-inducing experiences. I tried to change that for so long that I almost lost motivation to ever try to change this again. I'm on the edge of losing hope entirely. Not quite a question. Don't know if there's another part to the question or you just would like a response. Just emerging from the meditation, I would say, well, who? Who's addicted to what right now? Who's this entity who's addicted to something? In the moment, that's an idea, a fabricated identity of who you think you are and what kind of problem you think you have. So for the moment, just looking at that, how is that held in the mind? This strong identity. And then this idea that I'm someone who's lost hope or on the edge of losing hope. With this, I'm hoping we're still connected because I just got a sign that we might have lost connection. Okay, so I see the next part of the question is, how can I finally change that? It feels like I can't say no. I try to say no, but it has too much power over me. So as I was saying earlier, and I hope that the stream was connected, firstly challenge that identity. I am this person with this problem on the edge of losing hope. Right now, just can you relax out of that identity? Now, it's not denying the history or the memory of addiction to fast dopamine-inducing experiences, but know that right now as memory. So there's certainly momentum in the mind and habit patterns that are good to recognize, and to, especially if they're habit patterns of ways of being and doing that are causing more suffering. Obviously, we need to learn to reset our attention, redirect our attention in wholesome ways. So it's good that you're able to acknowledge on the relative level where you're at with that. You know, I can't give you loads of advice. It would be good to seek some counseling or psychotherapeutic advice, particularly if there are strong addictive patterns across one's life, because you'll need sustained, ongoing support to relax out of those patterns, and initially to work to replace or find more healthy ways of being. That takes time. But in the moment, as I suggested straight up, every time you have this sense of, I am this problematic personality with this problematic habit pattern on the edge of losing hope and feeling despairing, just wake up to that projected identity here and now. That's not who you are. There are certainly patterns in the mind that are you're perhaps losing the freedom of awareness with, getting pulled down rabbit holes and wormholes. And we all have that to a large degree, to varying degrees. So this is just the pattern that you have to work with. But the dukkha comes when you really think that's who and what you are. And it's not to deny the patterns, but to learn to recognize that's not who you are. Yet work needs to be done. But recognizing it's not who and what you are gives you greater strength to engage creatively and with more freedom to let go of these less healthy patterns and establish a more healthy way of engaging in the relative world. So I hope that helps. So, Hermit Mouse says, I've been living quite contentedly as a lay hermit for the past 10 years now. Over time, I've found it more and more difficult to navigate socializing on the rare occasions when it does come up. And the second part, sometimes I am calm and collected, but more often I am nervous and self-conscious, sometimes excruciatingly so. Can you offer any suggestions or cautions? Yeah, well, again, it's, I guess, the mind, body-mind becoming habituated, to seclusion, to not relating to others. I totally get how you feel, but it's also good to put yourself out there sometimes and know and work with what comes up in relationship or in socializing. It's different kinds of socializing. I mean, sometimes the socializing which is a bit inane or, just it's not something you want to spend your time doing. There are other ways we can socialize that actually feel fruitful, beneficial, or at least something that we need to engage in, but we can do it with a mind of kindness and compassion as we relate with other people and relate with the world. So it sounds like as you're coming into social situations, yes, you're very self-conscious. Those patterns may have been there before. You've become used to seclusion. And to some degree, we can all have that. If we're very observant when we come into relationship, there's different, the body-mind adjusts for relating. It becomes more aware that, okay, there's a kind of negotiated space here, and sometimes one with kind of, societal expectations or whatever. So that can make us a bit more nervous or a bit more on edge, depending on who we're relating to as well, and what the context is, what the situation is. In general, my encouragement would be to cultivate the qualities of metta and karuna, that's loving kindness and compassion, because these are particularly wholesome states in general, but particularly for the relational experience and coming into relationship with others. If we come in with a mind of kindness and compassion, it can really smooth any adverse or uncomfortable experiences on that level for oneself and also for the other. Because if you're feeling uncomfortable in a relationship, the other person is going to pick up on that as well. So explore the possibility of cultivating this kindness and compassion, both when you're practicing in seclusion, but very specifically and consciously when you come into relationship. And it may be that, it's relationship with people that make you less comfortable rather than relationship with animals or nature. Just start to observe that. How am I in relationship to animals and nature? Is there any of that discomfort coming up? I suspect not. It may be more to do with people. So there may be some early conditioning that is, reinforcing that discomfort. But know that it's quite normal for most of us to have some sense of caution in relationship, just depending on our conditioning and our past experience. But that also is a conditioned reaction. It comes and goes. And if you recognize it as something that it's a momentary conditioned arising, you don't have to identify with it. You don't have to try to push it out of consciousness or change it. Just see it arise and cease. And learn to rest into that more comfortable place of just being and trusting in awareness. But you can facilitate that and support that level of trusting with a cultivation of loving kindness and compassion. Kindness for all beings, compassion for all beings. So it sounds like you are someone who has a dedicated practice, so I'm sure you'll understand ways you can know of and understand ways you can cultivate that. So the next question says, dear one, is a letting go the best practice? Generally speaking, yes. One would have to qualify that in particular situations, because everything is relative and contextual to a large degree. But when the Buddha was asked in what way would he make the most succinct statement that would summarize his teaching, summarize his way of practice and guidance. And he said, nothing whatsoever is worth clinging to. So the most succinct summary of his teaching is nothing whatsoever is worth clinging to. So basically, he's saying that if we're clinging, then letting go is the best option. But we have to notice, we have to recognize where the clinging is. And the letting go has to be rooted in wisdom, in right understanding. Because there's a lot we can just play with this idea of letting go. We can let go of a lot of things in life, but we might be letting go with delusion. And actually, certain things we have to rise up to and meet and engage with. So our idea of letting go might be, not guided by wisdom. So the letting go is in relation to that which is clung to. Why? Because that which is clung to isn't of itself a cause of dukkha. Now, this is easy to say, but again, this must be guided by wisdom. And the wisdom itself is also grounded in kindness and compassion for oneself and for others. So it's implicitly a deepening understanding of the world, the mind, what we're working with, what clinging is, what letting go is in relation to the clinging that causes suffering. This is for us to explore, but be guided by the wisdom of awakened ones. Next question. I am experiencing a bright light that comes during my meditation. What is that? It only comes when my mind is very still. Well, there's different ways we could talk or say what that might be. The bright light, we could say that this is kind of the nature of awareness as in its natural luminosity, which is recognized much more clearly when the mind is still. Depending how this bright light comes, certain proficient meditators recognize this as what they call a nimitta. It's a sign of samadhi. Nimitta literally just means a sign or indicator. But it's a sign that the mind is in resting in stillness to some degree or other, the sign of samadhi. Not everyone gets this light factor necessarily in samadhi, but for many that is what appears. So it can be a useful sign. Some people actually get distracted by the sign itself or get excited. Oh, the mind's resting into samadhi, and they're popped out. But it's a natural, as you recognize when the mind is very still, it's a natural brightness that occurs. So I'm not sure if you have a further question down, but some people would go on to say, so what do I do with that? Don't do anything with it. Of course, different meditating, different teachers of meditation might say different things according to their own experience or way of practice. You recognize the light, but don't try to do anything with it. It may deepen, it may broaden, it may disappear. Ultimately, that doesn't matter. It's just a sign that appears in the progress of samadhi or meditation or the mind becoming more and more still. It's a good sign. No need to be distracted by in and of itself, but just continue in your practice and just observe. Just notice what happens. That's my recommendation. Just a little callback to Zaru's question on the addiction, dopamine addiction, in their second part of the question here. They're just saying it has too much power over me. I feel like I can't say no. But actually you can say no. Sometimes you have to find the space to say no before you're into it. Like you set up more of a discipline. So, for example, the dopamine hits you get through being online. You have to set up a discipline whereby you say, okay, I'm not going to turn my phone on until this time, and it's just going to be on for this amount of time, or whatever, or limit your use of the internet in such cases. If it's about, for example, stimulants or drugs that kind of happen in social situations, it may be that you need to limit and set the no before you get into the situation where you find you have no power to say no. So it's about recognizing the slipstream, how you get pulled in. There's actually a whole process before you reach the place where you feel like you can't say no. You've got to recognize that more and more and put in the stops beforehand. You can do it. You do have that power. Sometimes you find that that certain things get overridden. You get drawn in, and then you regret. But you have to then review the process and say, what happened? I could have stopped maybe there or there, without guilt or too much, self-recrimination, but enough to say, next time, this is where I'm going to stop. So set the intention in your mind. Even when you wake up in the morning, set the intention, today I'm not going to do this. Today I'm not going to go there. Really set that intention. That establishes quite a power. Try it. Okay. So grateful for this. Please speak on tips or techniques one could try to weaken the grip of the ego. Well, just that process of meditation. Meditation is all about weakening the grip of the ego in a very gentle and non-invasive way. We don't want to get into a wrangle or a push-pull. The ego is not dispelled through wrangling or berating or wanting it to be gone. It's not really a thing in and of itself. It's just an idea we have, actually, ultimately speaking, of who we think we are. So just seeing that idea when it arises, thinking, I am this. It's like, oh, are you? No, it's an idea that arises and ceases. So just seeing that is the very weakening. It's like seeing the wizard behind the curtain. If you know that metaphor from the Wizard of Oz, the great all-powerful wizard is just a little old man pulling strings behind the curtain. It's it's just that. So when we're in the so-called grip of the illusion, it feels very powerful. But actually, when you learn to rest in awareness, in meditation, and as it extends into your daily life, you see much more clearly the fleeting appearance and disappearance of these ideas and moments of identification with thoughts, ideas, memories, sense experience. And those moments of identification are also fleeting if they're seen. If we don't see them, we're pulled into a deluded, dreamlike existence until it's seen. Yeah. So hopefully, just the meditation and questioning, Ramana's questioning, like, to whom is this thought arising? If we, particularly getting caught in that thought or this deep desire. So I'm harking back to that question around addiction to dopamine, that I do have on our website, you'll find a series of meditations called Working with Challenging Emotions, the first of which is exploring, looking into fear, desire and fear. And that is really looking into that grip of the desire mind, how it can delude us. So just some reflections and guided meditation around that. So if you want to go to that to get some support and some resource. So if you're in the grip of desire mind and addiction, listen to that. That will really, hopefully, help you come out the other side. So this is also a way to weaken the grip of the ego every time we're caught in something. And the caught in ego mind is suffering. It's a limited, restricted way of being, existence. And even if it's the bloated ego mind, the grandiose ego mind, I am this great being, or I am this, if there is the I am this, it's a limited state of being. And even if you're identifying with boundless states, they're temporary, and there'll be a bit of a crash when it comes out, or ego will identify with some other less pleasant state once that has passed. So it's really the wisdom of seeing this clearly is what releases the mind from grasping, from identification, and frees the mind, ultimately frees the mind altogether from this illusion. Why is it a struggle to meditate? I keep putting it off and find myself starting the practice for a few days, then I stop for no reason. Well, there's a few good reasons why it's a struggle to meditate. Often it doesn't feel pleasant because you sit down and the mind is feeling a bit crazy, and being with that restless mental energy is not necessarily pleasant. Sometimes the body doesn't feel pleasant when you sit. So first you've got to recognize those things, find a relatively comfortable posture to sit in, and recognize when the mind is spinning in restlessness, but don't identify with it, and more particularly don't fight with it. Often meditators at the beginning and in the middle of practice even might fight with these things. They've got an idea that I want to be peaceful, I've got to make the mind peaceful, and we start to struggle with the unpleasant sensations of restlessness or worry or the unpleasant thoughts that come in. So what we need to learn is to just let these things be as they are, but to recognize them. This is restlessness. It feels like this. Can you find the sensations? So we learn to actually connect to present moment sensations, helps us to rest out of mental activity, streams of thinking, restless thinking, so as we can see when they occur, when they come and take over attention more easily. Start to notice they come and go, they come and go. We can learn to let the mind rest out, to wake up and rest out of them. They're not who and what you are. You know, meditation can become a really creative, explorative space, an opportunity to let the body-mind rest, because, you know, usually we are getting caught up in so much habitual momentum that our life can just feel like constriction altogether. So learning to appreciate what meditation can offer. Now, having said that, you know, with our daily momentum, most of us have so much stuff that we're involved with. That momentum has a certain power. And just to say to yourself, make this time to meditate, is really hard because we're caught in the momentum. So sometimes setting up a routine, you know, at this time I meditate, can be beneficial, whether you feel like it or not. If you just leave it up to whether you feel like it or not, it's probably going to happen less often and more often, depending on your circumstance. But notice what, you know, if there are unpleasant experiences, like unpleasant feeling tones, unpleasant thoughts, memories, restlessness, notice that in your meditation and just say, well, this is just a feeling. It's unpleasant. Don't engage it. Don't fight it. Come back to what is a neutral sensation of the breath or the body. And just be, like in that meditation instruction today, I was encouraging us to just be. So there's absolutely no pressure on the mind or the body to do or become anything. That's usually where the dukkha arises, that habitual momentum of becoming. And that, if it's not seen, will prevent us from sitting meditation in the first place. Just caught in the stream of becoming. So learning how to stop and recognizing that stopping is peaceful. So I hope that helps. So someone asks, I'm looking to take my practice from solo practice, guided by online teachings, such as yours, to engaging with an in-person Sangha, but I find myself crippled with doubt. Do I choose Zen, Tibetan, Theravada? Hoping for your thoughts. Is it worth trying out each and seeing what fits, or just picking one and going for it? Try out each, I would say, but it very much depends where you are. If you wanted to physically sit, it depends what you have access to. So, but certainly the easiest access, try them out. But if the teaching or the situation just doesn't feel comfortable for you, or you're not getting anything out of it, try a different one. It's okay to explore. But, you know, you usually find you have an inclination to one or other of these styles of practice or teaching, but then it can be very different depending on the teacher in each of these places as well. So just like meditation itself, you've got to try it out and see, is it beneficial, is it helpful or not? And then let your own wisdom guide you in that. So, someone says, your channel is my absolute favorite channel. Are you a bhikkhu or a lay person? Well, I'm in robes with a bald head, so I am a nun. Bhikkhu generally refers to a male renunciate, a male monastic. Lay person is a non-monastic. So I am a monastic. Samaneri Jayasara is a monastic. We're both 10 precept nuns. in the Theravada, were ordained in the Theravada Thai forest tradition style of practice. But of course, as you would be aware, we are very much leaning into other wisdom practices as well, particularly the non-dual Advaita and the Dzogchen Mahamudra type teachings, wisdom teachings. It seems to me that at the core of nearly every perceived problem is merely the inability or unwillingness to choose differently. So you have any thoughts on this observation? So the core of nearly every perceived problem is the inability or unwillingness to choose differently. That's one aspect of it, I would say. I think we always have an ability to choose differently. This could get into a deep philosophical discussion. I do think we always have the ability, whether we have the willingness or not is something else, but we can develop that willingness through wisdom. If you perceive a problem as a problem, then it's possible to perceive moving beyond that problem. But as you would have heard in my response to the earlier question, questioning who is this perceived person who has a perceived problem is really at the root of the dukkha, or the suffering of identification, or the misidentification with notions, ideas, concepts. But yes, we can, I think, we can always choose differently if we can inform ourselves with wisdom. And some people will argue that this is not possible. I will argue it is always possible, depending on the willingness. And sometimes that willingness is urged through, we talk about sometimes people hitting rock bottom with addiction before they find the willingness to recover. Sometimes this can happen till we get a clear picture of dukkha or suffering before we question, is there another way? Like waking up to the fact that you've been, bashing your head against a brick wall, and now you're starting to ask, is there another way? You're trying to get out. Is there another way? Trying to get free from suffering, but the way you've been doing it is not bringing results. So you have to ask, is there another way? And this is at the root, really, of the Buddha's own awakening and teaching framework of the Four Noble Truths. We need to see dukkha, understand suffering for what it is. Because most of us, although we know what suffering is, we try to get rid of it through means that don't work. Just by seeking more pleasure, or suppressing the pain, or ignoring, trying to destroy things, trying to do stuff. But actually, the Buddha said, until we understand what dukkha actually is in our direct experience, how it manifests, we won't understand the way to be free of it. So this is really the self-inquiry. But when you see it, right, well, that's an awakening moment. That's recognizing, that's the first insight of the First Noble Truth. And you'll get the glimmer of, once you understand the problem, you see the problem, you see the clinging, identification, you see the foolishness involved in keeping on bashing your head against a brick wall as the actual cause of the dukkha. You find the willingness and the insight to some degree to start to move beyond it, or at least experiment with a different way. Sometimes the inner silence merges with the outer silence, and there is wholeness. continuing to rest into this whole silence seems like the right thing to do. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the progress of the path. And for some people, it doesn't necessarily manifest as silence. It might manifest in some other way. But for you, the silence and the stillness is how things are progressing. So yes, I would affirm that that is the right thing to do. Doobie Doug. I'm conflicted on teaching Dharma and realizing this as attachment. What are your thoughts on this? Okay. I'm conflicted on teaching Dharma. Does that mean that you're teaching Dharma, but you realize that's an attachment of yours? Or you're conflicted about the prospect of teaching Dharma, whether you should or shouldn't, and realizing that that is an attachment. So I'm not quite clear what your question is. Maybe you could help clarify that further on. Just to address this in case you don't get the chance, if it's about whether or not to teach Dharma and you think the conflict is an attachment, it's not always an attachment. It may just be a lack of clarity. Teaching Dhamma, there should be certain requirements for someone to teach Dhamma, and maybe you don't meet those requirements. Or maybe you do meet those requirements and you don't want to put yourself out there as a teacher. There's rightness to some of these contemplations. So the conflict doesn't necessarily mean attachment. It means there's just not the clarity on what is the right thing to do. Sometimes you just need to stay with the not knowing for a few days or longer, and just, sometimes clarity emerges from that. Or if there's ego identification with wanting to be a Dharma teacher, then that's clearly not the correct motivation and should be let go of, whether or not you end up teaching or not. So there's a few thoughts there, but I'm not fully clear on that question. I've been listening to your great Dzogchen readings about luminosity. So those are from Jayasara. If there is only luminous awareness and all else is empty illusion, what does the luminosity illuminate? Well, that sounds to me like quite an intellectual question. It doesn't feel like it's coming out of a direct experience of illumination. It's an intellectualization of the pointings and then a doubt, well, what does luminosity illuminate? When you experience luminous awareness, there's no questions that arise out of that, actually. There's just clarity. Luminous awareness is clarity. So what does the luminosity illuminate? The luminosity is itself illuminating. It's self-luminous. It's clarity. Clarity regarding the mind, clarity regarding luminosity, clarity regarding the conditioned and the unconditioned. There's no question that arises from that. Sometimes patterns that I thought I had overcome come back up more strongly than ever. Have I just been in denial of my progress, or is this intensification a normal part of the purification process? Yeah, that's fairly normal, certainly in my experience. You think you've maybe moved beyond something, but it comes up in other ways. So it's good you're seeing it, that and that it can come back more strongly. I think part of the problem is thinking, oh, I've overcome this or I've overcome that. You know, that's the ego I sense, thinking that it has maybe achieved, and that's a definite sign that it's going to come back and slap you in the face or bite your bum, so they say. If you think you've attained something or gotten somewhere, yeah, watch out. But that's not a bad thing to see this, because it's a great learning, a great teaching. It's like, yeah. And we never know what's going to come up karmically, but how are we relating to that in the moment, you know? So yes, there may have been some denial there and projection of the ego, wanting to hang on to some sense of progress or attainment. But seeing that is actually, as you're saying, part of the purification and the weakening of the ego that wants to identify with progress. I am someone who's making progress. I'm getting better. I'm getting worse. It can go one way or the other. Poor me, wonderful me. All this projection of me in one way or another has to be seen and known just for what it is. Other thoughts, ideas, you know. When you use the term attitude, does this indicate a state ready to experience instead of identify, as in an attitude or receptivity without judgment? Attitude might mean disposition. The qualities that are informing the mind in any given moment. You have a bad attitude or a good attitude, right? The attitude, I think, in the meditation, I think I use with the attitude of, I'm not sure if I said the attitude of kindness or openness, or sometimes I will use, you know, the attitude of loving kindness, compassion. This is talking about the mind being informed or having those qualities present. But it can also indicate a certain intentional quality, attitude, like the intention of kindness, the intention of compassion, of subtle qualities ready to meet the world, meet engagement, meet any kind of relational experience. So in a way, it's what is the mind primed with? It can be primed with wholesome or unwholesome qualities. So our practice, our work, is to recognize what is it primed with, what's actually there, and to let go of the unwholesome and maintain or cultivate the wholesome. This brings the mind into lightness, into skillfulness, which is always of benefit for oneself and others. Thank you for the channel, and the teachings on it has edified my life to a whole new level. The teachings and music and Jayasara's voice, that's the other nun whose channel it is. The beautiful symphony of knowledge, wisdom and understanding. That's right. Well, the Master's pointings are indeed precious, very precious. You suggested metta and karuna earlier, but when attending to challenging tasks where there's a lot of resistance, shouldn't I marshal courage and determination to push through? Are they reconcilable? Sometimes if you just have courage and determination, it can feel against something that you're feeling is challenging. that can be a bit brittle and a bit hard and a bit pushy. Like, I've got to do this. I've just got to do this. And dukkha. If you explore how to augment that courage and determination with kindness and compassion, you'll find the task immensely more pleasant, less friction, less resistance. Metta, karuna, particularly metta in this case, smooths out the resistance. There may be some there, but the more you can bring in that kindness and compassion towards self and others, toward exactly what you're experiencing. So kindness in the face of resistance, what is that? They're definitely reconcilable. And I talk a lot of developing this kindness in a series of meditations on the website called Embodying Kindness, Awareness and Compassion. If you want to explore that, though you may have already. But yeah, definitely experiment with that and you'll be surprised, really surprised at the results. It does take courage to offer yourself love and compassion when you feel unworthy. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, if you're willing to explore how that works, you will be greatly surprised. It takes the willingness to explore, bringing in that love and compassion in the face of your own feelings of unworthiness or resistance. Why does the mind think that the next answer will help? Okay, I think this might be in two parts. Other than conditioning? Well, the next answer might help, Alex. But the conditioning would be, yeah, the next thing. This is the conditioning of becoming, wanting to move on to the next thing. Maybe there's something else out there, something better out there. It is the momentum of the mind, the seeking mind, generally. Doesn't mean that the next answer to the next question won't help. Of course, hopefully the answers are always pointing back to your present moment resource of the awareness here and now, which is ever relieving, ever helpful. But yeah, just to notice, it's that becoming energy in the mind. The next thing, what's next? What's next? That little tidbit, what's next? It's related to desire and becoming. This is a momentum in the mind. Just to notice that as a practice, to not believe it. It arises, notice when does it cease. When it ceases, it really ceases, unless we believe I am that, and I'm still traveling along with it in that belief. So explore that. I'm using the 99 names of Allah, the Sufi way, integrated my shadow, maybe integrating my shadow. I feel like I'm born again. Every day feels new and full of life. Lovely, lovely. Just moving through to the questions. Does meditation always have to be guided, or can I just allocate time to look out the window without distraction? I notice there are various types of meditation. Indeed. Various types of meditation, different ways you can do it. Doesn't always have to be guided. People find guided meditations helpful because it helps them stay present, stay on track. Or you can look out the window without distraction. Often, very soon, we do get distracted, and sometimes it can be many minutes before you wake up to the fact that you've been distracted. You're not just sitting looking at the empty sky and resting in vastness of awareness anymore. But do try that, and every time you try, and the practice would be to wake up to distraction. When the mind gets distracted, just waking up more. And in the waking up, there's the resting out of that distraction. So explore that. So, a new question. I have a goal to abstain from masturbation and weed for 1 year. I'm praying every day and doing yoga. Any advice? Love the channel. I think it's a great aspiration and a great vow to abstain from. And I think you'll learn a lot in the abstinence. I'm not sure how far into your 1 year you've gone, but you will learn a lot. So well done. Any advice? Just keep going. Hold to that vow. You'll find you'll need to develop a lot of skillful means to continue to refrain, and do that. It's a great thing to do, and you'll learn a lot of the benefits that come from that restraint. What are your feelings on vitamin D, aka sunshine? And then they've got luminous in quotes. Feelings about vitamin D. I take vitamin D. I think it's great. I think it's helpful. I think getting the right amount of sunshine and light for one's physical, mental well-being is very helpful, especially as we age. And especially if you're indoors a lot, you really need some healthy amount of sunshine at the right time of day. Can you speak to love? What is your experience of it, and how has it changed along the road of Dharma? So is that a question, can I speak about love, or can anyone speak to love? I would say both is possible. Love, there's many ways we can speak about it, and we have done in the live streams in different ways. But something I said quite recently was to recognize that actually love or lovingness is at the very core of our being. It is not something, in that sense, it's not something produced. It's actually a response of the heart, the free heart or the liberated heart, a response to beings, to the world. This is the quality of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy and equanimity, known as the four Brahma Viharas. They're relational responses of the heart-mind. Now, while we can say that they're innate qualities of the heart and expressions of the liberated heart, doesn't mean we can't cultivate them. And in fact, the Buddha encouraged us to cultivate love and kindness and actually bring it to fullness of expression. So many benefits for oneself and others, but also for the path of practice, for the path of awakening. What is my experience of it? Well, that I'm speaking from experience in that regard. But also, I would say that at the times where you might find yourself bereft of such feelings of love and kindness, feeling depression or despair or overwhelm, they're the very times that you need to remind yourself to plumb the depths of your own heart and allow it to come forth. You can generate and align with the natural qualities of love and compassion by even just generating, I talked of an attitude earlier, but generating an intention, as the Buddha encouraged, as simple as, may all beings be well, may I be well, may all beings be well. And this sounds really simplified and like how could that possibly generate love? But again, you have to engage it to see what it does. And not just through one intention, but a sustained intention. And this is really worth exploring. So someone's asking about a reading that might have disappeared off the website. Could be various reasons, but usually they're available if you look on not the website, sorry, the YouTube channel. If you look on the YouTube channel, you'll find Samaneri Jayasara gives a Google Drive link to all the recordings, and you'll probably find what you're looking for there. If not, it may mean that she's redoing it to bring it up to better quality. So I live in a small unit with little space. I have an altar in my bedroom with a Buddha and have sexual relations and change clothes, etc. in that room. Is this considered a sin? Not necessarily. No, I wouldn't say so. No. It is helpful to have a dedicated space, but for meditation that is not necessarily in a room where you do all those other things. But if you don't have the space, you don't have the space. But it's also about what you, it's not no such thing as a sin here, but what do you feel comfortable with? How would you set things up in a way that you're more comfortable? That may be a question for you to explore. And here's another simple question. What is emptiness? Emptiness is a concept. Let's see if I can address this. What's the time? Emptiness, or the Pali is sunyata. It usually refers to a characteristic of, say, the conditioned nature of, in the Pali sutras at least, an aspect of the conditioned experience. It is empty of permanent self, a permanent entity. The Buddha called this a sign, along with the sign of impermanence and the sign of unsatisfactoriness. He said there's a sign of anatta, the not self nature of conditioned experience, which can be seen and witnessed. So this is hard to understand outside of a meditative practice. It's really just seeing that everything you can experience within the mind and body is impermanent. It comes and goes. It's empty of a permanent entity because it's seen to come and go. Transient appearances, the permanent entity, empty of permanent entity, or empty of permanent essence. Sometimes it's referred to, but it's really empty of permanent entity. We would usually relate as me or mine, or relate to experience as this is me, this is mine, this is what I am. But when we really look and investigate experience, it's empty of that notion of self. It's empty of that projected idea of some permanent me. And that's to be seen directly, not to be intellectualized, because you can get off onto wrong tangents by just thinking. It's a meditation pointer for insight and inquiry to be realized. So this word empty, through the different Buddhist traditions and philosophical traditions, started to become more of a noun, emptiness, the empty nature of mind or the empty nature of experience, and then emptiness in itself. And the Buddha even said in a couple of suttas, I often abide in emptiness, or the meditation on emptiness, the meditation of emptiness. So this is referring to the signless, the experience of resting the mind when in the space of lucid awareness, where there's no more signs of mental, physical appearances occurring, yet there's lucid awareness. So this abiding can be referred to as emptiness, or abiding in emptiness. And in other terms, other traditions and other ways of talking about emptiness, we can talk about empty awareness in the same way as the abiding lucid awareness may be empty of the signs of appearing and disappearing momentarily or for extended periods. But the true emptiness, the Buddha said, is when the mind becomes fully awake, and now it is empty of greed, it is empty of hatred, it is empty of delusion. There is no longer any greed, hatred, or delusion arising. Therefore, it has attained the supreme emptiness. Ignorance is destroyed, the supreme emptiness. No greed, no hatred, no delusion. No more production of karma. However, whilst this body-mind still exists, there is experience through the senses. So that experience can come and go. But now, with attainment, the Buddha said, is empty of greed, hatred, and delusion. No longer any misconstruing what that experience is, no longer any grasping at it, identifying with it, no longer any desire aroused because of it, or hatred aroused because of it, or delusion aroused because of it. They're completely gone. But experience of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, as long as there are these sense doors, will appear, but they're fully understood. So these are the different meanings of emptiness. Could you explain the difference between the practice of metta and karuna? I understand in a sense, but I've come across meditation practice that overlap or even seem to swap each for the other. Well, just simply, metta is loving kindness and karuna is compassion. So there are different emphasis in that the metta is one could talk about it as, say, the abandoning of ill will, the abandoning of anger, the abandoning of ill will or hostility or aversion towards another or towards oneself. Or in the positive, it's having loving kindness, kind thoughts towards oneself or another. And it's been said that this is like the attitude or the feeling of friendliness. So when you see a friend, someone whom you love and love being with, the quality of the heart mind that arises in seeing them and welcoming them is loving kindness. And you would wish for their welfare. You wish them to be happy, And then having that attitude or intention of kindness towards oneself, particularly the difficult states we meet within ourselves. Can we hold them with a sense of welcome and friendliness rather than resistance and hatred and depression and despair? Can we find a new way to meet them and be with them such that they're released, they're transformed? So this is a quality of metta. And karuna, being compassion, is distinguished by the wish for one to be free from suffering, to relieve the suffering of another, or to relieve the suffering of oneself. So that compassion arises in the face, in the feeling of suffering, seeing another's suffering, perceiving one's own suffering, that wish to alleviate the suffering. Whether in that moment, in that situation, we're able to find the means to do that is something else. But the Buddha said actually just the wish to relieve that suffering, that is the compassion. And so within that compassion, we can say, may you be free of suffering. I wish you to be free of suffering. May I be free of suffering. Not in a clinging way or a worried way, but a may you be free. A real blessing kind of way, may you be free. And if there's actual situations rather than just a meditative cultivation, we're moved into finding ways to alleviate the suffering. For ourselves, we might find ways to let go of the clinging. It's said that the mark of compassion is the dispelling of cruelty, or the sense of harming or wanting to harm, or even taking mild pleasure in the misfortune of others. The relieving of that, the abandoning of that, the dispelling of that, even in relation to oneself. So, it's quite insightful when you develop this towards others and towards oneself, because we can uncover ways in which we relate to ourselves that are actually quite harmful and keep us bound in suffering. And just to wish ourselves to be free from suffering, to be free from anxiety, to be free from fear. Just that wish can have a profound effect within our meditative cultivation. So this is for us to explore. All through the day I have some sort of spiritual text playing on my phone, and even if silently, I can feel the energy of it and it keeps me present through the day. Yet it feels like it's external. And it is. When I don't do this, I'm definitely not as present, yet although I don't have specific attachment to this, it feels like my progress won't be organic if I continue this process. Any thoughts? I think it's good to play some stuff on your phone, but it can become habitual if it just becomes background noise as you're doing other things. So, and yet at moments it can catch us in the middle of doing something kind of regular and habitual, and then it's accompanied by awareness of profound pointing, and this can be transformative. So I would say you need to reflect on whether and how this is really helpful for you or not. Also, just on a technical level, if you've got something playing on your phone all day near to you, there could be other effects on the phone if it's like constantly on and pinging to the towers. I'm not into strange conspiracy theories, but it does have an effect on your system. I do find it's good not to have my phone on too constantly, or just like being on the screen too much. So there may be other ways you could play the spiritual texts through MP3 players, through amplifying through a speaker or something. That's another way. Could be less jangly. But yeah, take your lead from how it's making you feel. I would maybe not have it going on constantly, because it can become just a habitual background. You're not really paying attention. But it can wake you, if it's waking you up regularly during the day and during moments of activity in a way that's helpful and enlivening, and brings you into presence and nowness and reflection and contemplation, then that's helpful. Okay, so we've come to the end of our questions for today. And I think Jaya Sarah might still have the chat turned off, but we're coming up to 2 hours now, so we'll leave that here. But I will ask Jaya Sarah if she's able and still paying attention. She can or open up the chat again for people to say goodbye. That's always a nice way to sign off, give people a chance to say goodbye. Thanks. Good. So I hope today's meditation and discussion on Dharma and Q&A was helpful. As always, if you find the meditation and the answers helpful, go back and listen again. And, you know, we do keep all these live streams under the live tab in the playlists on the YouTube channel. So at times when we're unable to do them too regularly, you've got quite a lot to draw on. So I hope you're all well and continue to be well, and move into this next day, next week, next month with renewed vigor and energy for the Dharma. And yeah, and explore, experiment, make a little intention to say, I want to meditate a bit more, and wake up in the morning or set that intention at night to say, I'd like to make time to meditate just a little bit more, whether it's an extra 10 minutes a day or an extra session a day, and just see what happens. You know, experiment with that setting intention for whatever it is you'd like to work with, not in a big egoic way, but in a very sincere, heartfelt way, to want to allow the Dharma, the teaching and the understanding of the Dharma to penetrate the heart more deeply, and see how you go. Okay, be well, and Jaya Sarah will be back in 3 weeks' time for the next live stream. And I'll be back beyond that. Take care, everybody. Much love for now. Bye.